and welcome to this session on connect, start and run three-phase induction motor by using DOL, star delta and autotransformer starters. Let us begin with the session.
Let us now take a look at the objectives of this session. At the end of this session, you will be able to identify the parts of a DOL starter and make control circuit connection. Identify the parts of a manual star delta starter and connect with three-phase squirrel cage motor. Connect a three-phase induction motor with an auto transformer along with 3 contactor as starter. Different types of starters are direct online starter DOL, star delta starter, auto transformer starter. The ratings of the equipment are selected based on the nameplate details. The nameplate details of the induction motor needs to be noted down. The list of equipment or tools required are shown in the table here. Now, the next task is to identify the parts of the DOL starters and do the connections. The dimensions of DOL starter can be observed in this figure. Let's collect the contactor unit, overload relay unit, start, stop, push button unit, fixing screws, hookup cables, ICTP switch and DOL starter base and cover. Let's now identify the parts of a contactors. These are input terminals, output terminals, main terminals, auxiliary terminals, movable contacts, fixed contacts. Check the no volt coil of the contactor. This is an overload relay. Look at the rating of it. These are the normally closed relay contacts. Next step is to mount the accessories in the starter box using mounting screws. We need to connect the hookup cables to the starter circuit as per the circuit diagram now. Measure and cut the hookup cables as per the requirement, leaving allowance for harnessing. Now let's connect them. Check harness of the hookup cables such that the cables do not interfere with any moving mechanism of the starter. We will check up once again the complete connection of the DOL starter internal wiring. As the wiring is over now, find the holes in the starter base box for mounting the starter on the wall or frame. Let's mount the starter vertically on the wall or frame. Next, we will connect the main supply of the starter incoming terminals through the ICTP switch. The starter outgoing terminals goes to the three-phase squirrel cage induction motor along with the ammeter and voltmeter. Connect the protective earthing continuity conductors, that is, 2 separate PE connections to the motor and the starter case, ICTP switch and connect securely the PE continuity conductors to the main earth. Check the full load current of the motor and set the overload relay of the starter to that rating. Provide a backup fuse as recommended by the manufacturer of the starter considering the horsepower rating of the motor. Get the main connections, earth connections, overload setting and the backup fuse rating approved by your instructor. Switch on the ICTP. Start the motor by the Start S3 button of the starter. Read the ammeter for the starting current at the time of starting. Read the voltmeter and ammeter values when the motor shows normal running. Measure the actual speed of the rotor with the help of a tachometer. Switch off the motor using Stop S2 button of the starter. Switch off the mains, remove the fuses and disconnect the connections. Determine the synchronous speed and enter the value in table 1. Now let's check the connection of the star delta starter. Switch off the mains and remove the fuse. Remove the terminal cover of the motor and front cover of the starter. To connect a star delta starter, the squirrel cage induction motor must have 6 terminals which are normally marked as A1, B1, C1 and A2, B2, C2. The internal connections can be done as per the connection diagram. Now let's make the connection of the motor, starter, the ICTP switch as per the circuit diagram. Ammeter is connected in series with one of the line cables from the main switch and the voltmeter across the 2 line cables. Wire the fuse element according to the given motor rating in the fuse carrier and insert the carriers in the main switch. Set the overload relay according to the full load current rating of the motor. Provide double earth to the metal body of the main switch, starter and the motor frame. As the connections are done, next step is to switch on the main, observe the voltmeter reading and move the handle to the star position positively and at the same time observe the starting current and enter it in table 2. Allow the motor to start, race initially and let the sound of the floating shaft come to a steady state. Then move the handle to the delta position positively. Let's note down the direction of rotation and enter it in table 2. Note down the current taken by the motor in running condition and enter the value of the current in table 3. Stop the motor by pressing the stop button of the starter. Switch off the main switch and remove the fuses. Now interchange the 2 line cables R and Y to the terminals L2 and L1 and insert the fuse carriers in the main switch. Now start the motor again as we did earlier and note down the readings. Stop the motor, switch off the supply and remove the fuse. Then interchange the line cables Y and B terminals L3 and L1 and again insert the fuse carriers in the main switch. Start the motor again and observe the readings. Stop the motor and write your observations about the method of changing the direction of rotation. Switch off the mains, remove the fuse carriers and remove all the connections. Next starter connection, we are going to do autotransformer starter. Let's make the connection as per the connection diagram. Vary autotransformer till rated voltage is applied. Measure RPM of the motor. Now the experiment is completed. Turn the autotransformer knob towards left till the voltage reaches 0 and switch off the mains. To recap, we have learned to identify the parts of a DOL starter and make control circuit connection. Identify the parts of a manual star delta starter and connect with 3-phase squirrel cage motor. Connect a 3-phase induction motor with an auto transformer along with 3 contactor as starter.
So that's all about the starters of induction motors. See you in the next session.